Welcome to Daytime Ottawa here on Rogers TV. I'm your host, Derek Fage, and the City of Ottawa's draft budget has been released. A lot of information to go through, but we don't want you to have to go through it all. That's what we are here for, and more importantly, that's why we are joined by CityNews Ottawa anchor and host Mark Day. Mark, how are you? Great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be on here, Derek. And a lot to go through here. I'm putting my math skills to work with this budget. The city tabling it yesterday, $4.14 billion. And so we have the overall city budget. We have transit. We'll get into police and a lot more just to kind of pull from, just to get an idea of how it's going to affect the everyday resident and taxpayer.
Yeah, and Mark, property taxes are the big thing, right? We're seeing a 3% increase. And I guess, the question is that enough to cover everything when you consider, the extra spending that we've had to do as far as the pandemic is concerned? What are you hearing about that 3% increase?
Well, I know Councillor Teresa Kavanagh is, she's hesitant to say that it will be enough. Her worries are that it could mean cuts down the line, depending on, how this pandemic continues to play out. This is the second pandemic budget. The mayor is sticking to it. He thinks 3% is the way to go. Looking at inflation across the country right now, I believe we're looking at 4.4% nationwide. But Ottawa as a city, inflation rate's around 5.3%. So 3% coming under. The mayor believes that, it would be a burden to go above that 3%. But he's hoping that the provincial and the federal governments will be there to help offset that deficit. He also talked about healthy resources when it comes to, the revenues and for the city. But it's all dependent on these other factors at play, like, transit's a big one. So we're just going to have to wait and see. It's like a crystal ball with these types of draft budgets to get an idea of where we're going. But again, every municipality across the country is facing the same issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark, you mentioned that transit budget. I think a lot of people may be surprised, maybe not surprised, but certainly concerned with a fare increase coming in January. I think a lot of people are looking at that going, with everything we've gone through, how can they possibly justify something like that?
Well, it's 82% is, those are pre-pandemic levels. That's what they're hoping ridership will return to, that we'll get back to a little bit of normality. But there's no debating the fact that transit has really been affected by this pandemic, and just seeing where ridership is. I think for the mayor, he said today on City News that the free month in December will end up saving people $122, and the rise in fares in 2022 will end up saving you, I think it's $36. It'll cost you $36 for the entire year. So he's trying to play it out as if, you're going to get your break in December. But again, looking ahead to 2022, a lot of this will come down to federal employees. The transit chair, Alan Hubley, talked about it yesterday. It's the federal government that will have to make that decision. Whether or not these office buildings downtown will be filled up again. But that's the ridership. And a lot of that revenue for the city when it comes to transit are those monthly passes, those 5 days a week. And, so we don't know where we're going with it in terms of transit right now. We have to wait and see. They're putting $624,000 aside for advertising and marketing to try and lure people back onto transit. But with even the ongoing issues with light rail alone, it's been down for over 45 days now. I think a lot of people are upset with the fact that they're going to be paying more next year, given the history of transit in the last couple of years. One thing I will mention is the Equipass for low-income residents and also the pass for Ontario Disability Support Programs. They will be free, so they will not be going up. But regular fares going up at 10 cents, $3, 70 cents one way, and $125 for the monthly pass.
Yeah, they've got their work cut out for them. As you said, they're going to be doing some advertising, trying to lure people back. But, people get into new routines and start getting used to their cars and listening to City News, to and from work on their car radio. So that they've got a big challenge ahead. Let's talk about the Ottawa Police Services budget, because, we've heard a lot of talk of defunding the police. Obviously, that not being the case here in Ottawa. Tell me about the police budget and the reaction you're hearing from that.
Yeah, a lot of reaction, as you can imagine, with the police budget. It's about $400 million a year, so a 2.86% increase. $14 million more is just needed for next year because there are major factors at play here when it comes to police, and a lot of that's just new salary. It's payroll. That's really the biggest cost, wage increases, and with inflation as well. So an inflation freeze would be one of the major factors for police. Diane Dean said it's something they will talk about. They will discuss the police budget. And she says, that they'll go through it line by line. And, the 2.86%, it doesn't mean police will get that.
Right.
But a lot of people wanted a 0% increase. A lot of community groups, they don't want police getting more money. They want it capped and they want it freezed at exactly where it was last year.
Mark, I want to jump in here and talk about one of the things that I found most disappointing, and that was the affordable housing. $15 million to affordable housing seems like a drop in the bucket. What are you hearing?
Yeah, the same. I mean, a lot of councillors around the table are also looking at that number. And affordable housing is one of the key issues, I think, for any municipality to work on. I also am hearing the same thing, that people are disappointed with that number. They'd like to see more money added for affordable housing because it is a crisis. It's not just something Ottawa is dealing with. It's across the country, but specifically for this city and the cost of housing. I mean, it's astronomical right now when you're looking at the numbers to get into the housing market alone. But then for people who are struggling to find homes, it's costing more and more, and rent prices. I mean, it's a real issue, and I think I agree. There's just not enough money there. There needs to be more money put aside for that.
Yeah, concerning, especially considering we're calling this a housing crisis. I mean, we're in an emergency situation. Mark, always appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Anytime, Derek. Thanks.
If you want to see more of a breakdown, of course, you can visit ottawa.citynews.ca for more information and a summary on the draft budget. We'll be back with more Daytime Ottawa right here on Rogers TV.